Hey, good Wednesday morning, guys, and thanks for checking out your latest weather yield episode here on YouTube, talking about the extended outlook and the thought process for the yields and the trends and everything that we're seeing with ENSO and the evolution from El Nino to La Nina, all the good stuff. Today. We'll talk about the latest crop progress numbers as well. Big ticks upward. We kind of talked about maybe a window of some planting to be possible last week, and it seems like a lot of people certainly took advantage of that. So exciting for sure to see some folks at least being able to get the crop into the ground. Let's go over the latest, all right? If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get our updates on weather yield here every Wednesday. So we're going to talk about an active pattern trying to come to an end here after the next few days. Drier risks look to be emerging for June. For a big part of it anyways. It will be cooler overall versus normal the next 10 to 14 days or so. We are looking at a potential significant signal for heat late June and a northwest flow risk to develop, which means thunderstorm clusters. And then La Nina continues to develop, and we'll talk about our latest yield outlook as well. All right, so plant delays to continue. Is that the idea? Right now, I think that for portions of the central U.S., they could potentially continue a little bit. We look at last week, the 19th's progress, we were at 70% planted. This week, we're at 83%, okay? We look at 80% in Illinois, 88% in Iowa, 73% in Indiana. You look, last week, we were 54 in Indiana. That's a big jump. That's almost a 20% jump in the corn progress planted. Illinois, a big jump from 67 to 80, from 78 to 88 in Iowa, and then you look from 79 to 91 there in Nebraska. So big jump there, 13% increase, puts us right at pace really with where we should be this time of year. The soybean progress last week in the Dakotas, low in 33, 37. This week, big jumps, 52 and 58% planted up there, and big jumps in Nebraska and Iowa as well. All right, and in Indiana from 49 to 69%. So again, just overall a huge increase there. And when you look at where we're supposed to be, when you look at the data, if you look very closely, I'll go to corn real quick here at the top. You can see the line, this dashed line is the 5-year normal, the small dashes, and this is where we currently are. We're right in line with the 5-year normal, slightly below last year. In terms of emerged, we're right in line with the 5-year normal for emergence. There's really no indication there of anything different, right? Or to be totally concerned about. In fact, with soybeans, what's interesting is we're actually ahead now of the 5-year normal, right? We're actually ahead of the 5-year normal both in planted and in emergence. So that's interesting nonetheless. The weather has certainly cooperated, at least recently. Now, I'm not saying that a lot of this maybe didn't get planted in subpar conditions and mud. That's certainly going to weigh into this, I think. This has to be factored into the overall end discussion of where the yields end up. Last week, we did talk about there potentially being wetter trends, the forecast of being wetter. And the next 7 days for this week, it's wet. You can see where we're looking at rainfall here across the central portions of the country. There's no lack thereof, I can tell you that. It's very, very wet. In fact, you've got places here across Minnesota, eastern Dakotas, Nebraska, Kansas, down to the deep south, here over across Iowa. Again, very, very wet. Precipitation here, 2, 3, 4 inches the next 7 days. All right, so as we continue to look at things, the last 14 days we've seen our fair share of moisture. We've had plenty of rain. If you're seeing the first shade of this gray color here, you've had 5 inches or more of rain the last 2 weeks. Iowa has just been inundated with rain. Portions of Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, a bunch of rain, all right? Where you continue to miss is southwest Kansas, western Oklahoma, panhandles of Texas there. It's just continued to run dry there, unfortunately, continue to miss it. And you can see the precipitation departures from normal where it's been excessively wet and where we've, missed it the last couple of weeks for sure. Even further than that, we've continued to miss rains here time and time again as the setup continues to be east and north of that. for the most part, when you look at this 20-foot view, everyone's above normal rain here the last 2 weeks. So something to keep in mind. Rainfall the next 10 days, that'll be an inch or more. Well, it's highly probable that you will have an inch or more of rain. In fact, it's basically 100% probability here where you're seeing these maroon colors. Okay, inch or more of rain on the table here. Eastern Ohio, western Pennsylvania there as well. Very, very wet signal the next 10 days. Interesting to note, at least some of the indications in southwestern Kansas of some possible rainfall there. Gosh, I mean, that's not a bad thing. Look at the blend. Look at the model. Next 7 days, there is some indication that it can possibly rain there. So we'll keep that in mind. The 10-day, 2-inch plus rainfall parameter is showing the highest probability being across central Texas. All right, most of eastern Texas, far southern Oklahoma. There is some probabilities, decent ones, 60% or so, eastern Kansas, southeastern Nebraska, and portions of south central Minnesota. No big signs of crazy heavy rainfall there in the eastern belt, at least the next 10 days. Looking ahead the next 2 weeks, well, week 2 here on the bottom, it's a big signal for temperatures to be below average, much cooler than normal. Big portion of that is the typhoon recurve, or at least the trough that recurved out there in the western Pacific, alters the jet stream, sends cooler air here into the U.S., and we're kind of seeing that. But note what you see there in week 2 on rainfall. It's certainly a drier look there in terms of relative to normal, right? We certainly can see that we do believe the pattern may start to calm down and turn wetter for places that need it, especially in southwest Kansas and the panhandles there. That's a pattern change. That's a pattern change. There's the recurve, all right? There's the trough recurving and the temperatures that are resulting from that. And so that's the thing. It's interesting. The eastern U.S. has been really very warm since May 1st. In fact, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, top 10 warmest. They're in the Northeast too, right? In terms of the start of of May. Well, it's the 29th, so I mean, I guess all of May really. Southern Texas, all the way to the southern Gulf Coast into southeast Florida, very, very warm. In fact, it's the warmest May in Florida on record in the last 132 years. So that's an interesting statistic. Looking at rain, I mean, it's been a top 5 wet month for northeastern North Dakota. It's been basically about a top 6 wet month for Iowa. Kentucky, Tennessee, been very wet. Eastern Texas has been very wet, and down across the south, southern Alabama, Georgia, been very, very wet as well. So we've got some pockets of some very significant rainfall. Month to date for southwest Kansas, for perspective, it's ranked 98th, which means it's been drier, but it's not in the top third yet. That's interesting, something to consider right now. It has actually been drier there this time of year versus what it is right now. Okay, let's talk about the 16 to 30 day pattern. The first map I want to show you is the current day 1 500 millibar height anomaly forecast over the northern hemisphere. What I want to direct your attention to is research we've used multiple times in years past to predict heat waves. We look at what we call the wave 5 pattern. Okay, it's 5 ridges in the northern hemisphere that can signal potential heat around 20 days later. That's signal number 1. Puts us around June 20th, right? Then we look at the forecast and the trend and the angular momentum. All right, the forecast trend here as we get into June continues to suggest a drop. All right, as the drop starts to happen, it's normally about 15 to 20 days later, we start to see heat increase. As we get to the lowest point, that's another signal, 20 days onto that into July, there could be more heat. The declining angular momentum and the declining ENSO state is a heat wave signal. We believe there could be some of that. The weekly is actually hinting at this. This is June 20th, 21st through the 26th via the latest weekly. And you can see where it's putting the center of the highest heights. All right, from normal, those are significantly above normal for late June. It puts the core of the ridge down across Texas. Well, what that would mean is what I've talked about in these videos for multiple weeks now, if we put the ridge down here and we allow this 588 height line to flow right through here, you get hot and you bring thunderstorm clusters through the central part of the country. So it gets stormy, possible severe storm clusters, and hot towards late June based on the latest signals. The thing with June we have to remember is I think we start cool. It's cooler, especially central and east. The warmth starts to overspread with time as we work into June. So week 3 in this forecast is cooler, but week 4 is probably much warmer. Nonetheless, we're much above normal on the population-weighted cooling degree day forecast. The 30-year normal is 112. We're going 130. Last year we were at 94. So we're forecasting it to be much warmer, especially towards the end of that period. Here's the thing with precip. Precip in this period could start dry, below normal, okay? In this area here, to start this period, it's possible that we're looking at below normal precip. As we get into later June, maybe the last 10 days, I think where precipitation can start to pick back up and become more active will be through here, with that flow pattern being more northwest flow, thunderstorm clusters being at risk there, okay? There is a potential that for a time, a large chunk of the growing region could become dry for June and dry out. A lot of that's based on the weekly ENSO progressions right now. Okay, we're continuing to see the development suggestions of La Nina. All right, we can see a large area of cold water just beneath the surface, and significant cooling continue to occur in the ENSO regions. All right, which means we're still headed towards La Nina. What we're watching is some of the latest trends here in the data. I want you to look at the latest forecast right here. You can see that they're trending weaker towards that La Nina line, whereas some of the older forecasts were quicker. This is the July suggestion right here. Okay, what we did today is we've based some of our research off of years with a slower transition, possibly not hitting the La Nina status till late July. All right, and what we found was something very interesting. I want to show you the June analog for precipitation in years like that. Look how dry it is overall for the month of June. Okay, these are precipitation departures. This doesn't mean it doesn't rain. Okay, it just means that rainfall might be 50% of the normal for June in a large part of the growing region. All right, look at the latest CFS monthly. Look at the trend in the last basically 6 runs of the model. All right, you can see the suggestion I'm talking about that I just showed you in the model every run, including today's latest run. Leads some credence to those analogs. It's like, okay, well, that looks like the model. Might be the June forecast right now. Might be where we're headed. Temperature forecast, it again starts cool. And I think late 20th or so of June and beyond, there could be some significant heat that we might start to be watching. A ridge developing towards the 4th of July holiday. Okay? And again, you can see the suggestion in the CFS as we're going to may start cool, but we may start building in heat over the top. That might be the idea right now. We look at our latest yields, analogs, our latest research, our June analogs plus our ENSO evolution, and we still come in at 0.1 points below trend. All right? You can see the years that are above trend are years like 1998, all right? 2000 and looks like 2007 here. I'm sorry, I got a brain fart there. And 2016, and then in here into 2021. Well, other years that were similar, 2020, okay, 2010, and then again back here to 1995. These years featured warmer temperatures and a shut-off in precip the second half of summer. So the idea right now is still, with even the new thought process in mind of perhaps a slower transition to the La Nina, we're still below trend in that corn yield. Look at the soybeans, we're 1 point above right now. Some of these latest analogs, especially the most recent 3 years, 21, 20, and 16, all had above trend bean yields. by 1 point. So that might be a little bit of a change and something we're going to continue to monitor in the weeks ahead here. So that's the latest for today. Hopefully this has been beneficial for you, somewhat valuable. Please, by all means, share it with a friend. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel to get the latest on the weather and yield every Wednesday. Have a great week. Talk to you soon.